The year was 2001. A young Lyra sat down with his mother's green Game Boy Color and booted a game for the first time. That game was Pokemon Crystal. While I had played Pokemon games before that, I couldn't yet read, so all I could really do is fumble around. Crystal happens to be my earliest memory of a Pokemon game that I truly experienced. So this year, for Pokemon Day, I decided to go right away back to the beginning, to the Johto region, and a particularly adorable long friend. Can you beat Pokemon Crystal with only a Furret? Rules: I can only use Sentret and Furret in battle. Other mons may be in my party at any time for HMs, but cannot be used in battle. No glitches or exploits, no items in battle, and bonus rule: no held items. Nothing too extreme this time, but for once, let's just enjoy ourselves, okay? Given the length of Crystal, we're probably going to be only touching on the important notes, otherwise this would have been a several hour long video. Starting out, we're faced with the usual conundrum. Since Furret is not a starter, we'll have to play the tutorial without it. I picked Totodile, headed through Cherry Grove City to Mr. Pokemon's house, then doubled back to meet our rival Silver. Unfortunately, we do need to fight him before we can get Pokeballs, so if you want, you can chalk this up as a loss. I could have, however, just edited the game to allow custom starter, but I'd rather not do that unless I need to. That said, we take out Silver's Chikorita with Scratch, then head back to help Professor Elm file his police report. As a thanks, his aide gives us some Pokeballs, allowing us to go to the first route and catch a Sentret. Meat Noodle. Now, I could grind here and level up to 15 in order to evolve into a Furret right away, but Johto kinda already has enough problems with level scaling, so I elected this time to allow both Sentret and Furret. The Sentret line happens to be this region's Rattata, meaning it has low overall stat line and not exactly the best move pool, with players only really intended to use it during the first part of the game and then switch it out for something better. But like it or not, this is what we've got to work with. As you can see from this moveset, without TMs this run is going nowhere, especially in a region with Ghost type gym. So in the long run, we're gonna have to watch out for any and all usable TMs. But first things first, I need to get to a usable level, because right now even the wild Pokemon are knocking me out. Thankfully, Hoppip exists. Hoppip only knows Splash, so it's prime experience fodder. At level 4, we're barely able to take out the legend that is youngster Joey and his top percentage Rattata, which means we're probably good to move on. Arriving in Violet City, the first thing I do is take on the Sprout Tower. All the trainers here have Bellsprout, which at this point isn't too big a threat, and it gives us valuable levels. At the top of the tower, we once again briefly meet our rival, before we take on Sage Lee the Tower Master. His Bellsprout manages to take us down to just 11 HP before it went down, leading to his Hoot Hoot, which decides to just go for Foresight instead of attacking us, allowing us to easily win. Around now we should be the right level for the gym. Our first gym battle is versus Falconer, a flying fanatic and master of illegal Pokemon. Out first is a level 7 Pidgey. We're doing roughly half with our quick attack, and it's doing barely anything to us, letting us get a very unneeded crit to take it out. But next comes his ace, a level 9 Pidgeotto. Our quick attack is doing roughly about a third of its health, and it uses Gust. Given that this thing has the stats of an evolved Pokemon and has Stab, I was honestly expecting Gust to do more than 8 damage. Granted, I do have the level advantage, but I didn't think that was going to be that big of a difference. Seeing this though, I realized that I really have nothing to worry about and take the KO. One badge down, but most importantly, Mud Slap. Yes, I'm serious. Mud Slap is a vital TM for us, as it's our only way to deal with ghost types for quite a while at this point. So until then, I'm placing my faith in the 20 power move. Man, that's depressing to say. Anyways, along the way to the next gym, we're offered some rather dubious goods, and our noodle finally evolves. In Azalea Town, we're tasked with chasing some ruffians out of the Slowpoke well. Frankly speaking, Team Rocket in this game sucks. They are only worth mentioning for story significance. Outside of that, they are extremely underleveled, and it's only gonna get worse as the game goes on. Second gym time is what I would say if I hadn't mistakenly walked one space too far to the left. Instead, he has our rival. And boy am I thankful that I remember to teach Mud Slap, as out first is Ghastly. Unsurprisingly, Mud Slap only does about half damage to Ghastly, and it goes for Hypnosis, but thankfully misses, allowing us to take it out. Zubat falls easily to our newly learned Fury Swipes, leaving just Bayleaf. Its Razor Leaf is doing respectable damage, but our Fury Swipes and Quick Attack hit far harder, letting us win Rival 2. Now about that gym fight. Bugsy here is a Bug-type user. The thing is, 2/3 of his team can basically do nothing as they favour using Harden, and even when they do attack, they do 2 damage. But his ace is what I was really worried about here. Cypher here has great stats overall, and we're only doing a quarter of its health. Our Ritz Fury Cutter is only going to get more powerful, so a dragged out fight is not advantageous. Or that's what I thought at least, but it seems it's still doing barely anything, so I guess there really wasn't any need to worry. 2 badges down. In Ilex Forest, we play a brief game of hide and seek with a Farfetch'd and pick up the Headbutt TM. This is probably going to be our best normal type option for the entire game. We also make a stop when we enter Goldenrod to pick up the Fire Punch TM for coverage, because everybody knows that a good noodle should be served hot. With our moveset upgrades, we head towards every Johto player's nightmare, Whitney. She begins the battle with level 18 Clefairy. Our Headbutt's doing really good damage here, but Clefairy goes for Metronome and hits Bide. Probably the least useful move it could have in this situation, allowing us to easily KO. This leads to the legend itself, Miltank. I know I'm in a damage race here, so I use Headbutt for just less than 1/3 of its health, which is not optimal, but we get the flinch. I was still kinda worried about the damage though, so I kept up with the Headbutts, only to flinch again, and again, allowing us to take the KO. Admittedly, I'm pretty sure I'd flinch too if somebody hit me in the face with a noodle, but I digress. Against all odds, damageless Whitney. On our way to Gym 4, we pick up the TM for Dig to replace Mud Slap, and we deal with an imposter. In the Burn Tower, we once again meet our rival. Time for our new song and dance. Dig a tunnel, dig, dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel, dig, dig a tunnel. Our burrowing prowess lets us easily KO his Haunter and Magnemite, bringing us to a Zubat, which still gets one-shot by Headbutt. Last up is his Bayleaf, but again, the damage difference should be obvious even with crits. Now it's time for Morty. Sing it with me, everybody. Dig a tunnel, dig, dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel, dig, dig a tunnel. I kid. But seriously, his entire team apart from Gengar was one shot by Dig before they could even do anything. And Gengar kinda wasted his chance by using Mean Look, which literally does nothing against us. Man, who would have thought the normal type could sweep a ghost type gym this easily? Let's have a look at his moveset a second. Ah, that's probably why. Moni can't even hit normal types with anything other than Dream Eater. How fun. I should note, this is where Johto gets really problematic in terms of levels. I am currently level 28, which means I am on level with all 3 of the next gyms. Yeah. And I'm gonna get experience no matter what between that, because there's so many mandatory trainers. I mean, you've got the Kimono Girls, the Lighthouse trainers, and any mandatory trainers in between. This is gonna become an issue real fast. But first, before we head further, I need a new HM user since Totodile can't get strength. I don't know. Seems kinda weak to me. Now that's what I'm talking about. You may not believe it, but this is what peak performance looks like. With that, it's time for Chuck. We're at a massive disadvantage here given this gym is a fighting type gym, but Chuck only has 2 Pokemon. Out first is Primeape. Despite its level difference, we're still unable to one-shot it, but even a super effective Karate Chop only does minimal damage to us, allowing us to get the KO. But next up is Poliwrath, which has Dynamic Punch. An incredibly inaccurate move that would spell absolute doom for us if it actually hits. Too bad I'm playing 4D chess and we managed to hit another 2 consecutive flinches. Man, getting this lucky kinda feels like a crime. Well, we can roll directly into our next gym, Jasmine. Our tunneling expertise is enough to bring down both of the Magnemites, leaving just Steelix. Steelix is a tank. Our dig is doing minimal damage, resulting in our loss. Second time round, we go for Fire Punch instead, hoping to hit for a bit more damage. But we're barely doing under half. I had resigned myself to a third attempt here, but then we hit the 10% burn chance, effectively killing Steelix's damage potential and giving us the win. I really don't feel like I deserve that, but a win is a win. Over in Mahogany Town, we put a sick animal out of its misery and get roped into helping take out the Mafia. I'd like to point out to you that at this point, Team Rocket is rolling around with level 18 Pokemon. That's half our level, and over 10 levels less than that of the 5th gym. Now you understand why I'm skipping them. Time for Price. Price here has a problem. His ace is only level 31. He is lower level than the last gym. Just how did you think this was going to go? His Seal, Dugong, and Piloswine all go down ridiculously easy without really doing anything to us. I love Johto, but it's way too easy. Speaking of easy, more Rocket shenanigans with a ton more required trainers. Hey, at least our rival's here to break up the monotony. Up first is his Golbat, which we don't one-shot, in return we get hit by Confusion. Granted, Golbat isn't really doing much to us. We're actually our own greatest enemy here. Confusion hurts. Eventually we hit and come to Magnemite though, and we once again hit ourselves. But we eventually snap out of Confusion and hit Dig for a one-shot. His Haunter is unable to take Shadow Ball, leading to Sneasel, which is incredibly frail. And outlast is Meganium. Our Fire Punch is doing just under half and we're taken to red by a Razor Leaf, so I gambled on a Headbutt and hit the high roll for a win. Now if you excuse me, I have like 20 more mandatory Rocket fights to deal with. And gone. With that, it's time for our last gym. Claire the Dragon Master. Claire starts with the Dragonair, but our noodle has gone cold at this point, letting us hit Ice Punch for most of its HP. Unfortunately, we do get paralysed though, letting it chip us before we can take it out. Dragonair number 2 hits a Dragon Breath before we headbutt into the Shadow Realm, and Dragonair 3 is a repeat of number 2 down to the exact detail, leading to a Ace Kingdra. It surfs, taking us to just 37 HP, and we headbutt for exactly half, leading to one final surf that finishes us off. Time for round 2. This time I managed to avoid being paralysed early on, letting me get Kingdra with full HP. Our headbutt flinches once again, letting us get a flawless victory. But Claire is a crybaby and refuses to give us our badge until we pass the test. I'm only bringing this up because I have a very unique hatred of Claire. You see this sprite here? This is her back sprite. Before Crystal release, there was an image floating around in magazines of this back sprite on an island in the northeast of the Dragon's Den. I was convinced by this magazine that this was a legendary Pokemon, so learning the truth here was incredibly bitter. I have never been able to find this image anywhere, but it has forever left a mark on me. Anyways, time for an entirely different rant. I just beat Claire. I am level 51. I currently outlevel the champion. Yeah. What's more, I outlevel majority of the post game as well. Anyways, it's time for the Elite Four. But first, one last silver fight. How do I put this? We proceed to slaughter him because we're 15 levels higher. Sneasel, one shot. Golbat, flinch to death. Magneton, grave dug. Haunter, laid to rest. Kadabra, sent to the Shadow Realm. Meganium! Well, Meganium manages to get a hit off, but it's too little too late. Let's just get on with this. Our first member of the Elite Four is Will, the Psychic type user. Shadow Ball. That is all I need to say here. Xatu, one shot. Jinx, one shot. Executor, two shot but barely hurt us. Slowbro, two shot but wasted its turn. Xatu number 2, same as the first. Next up is Koga. He starts out with an Ariados that goes for evasion spam, but Noodle is the luckiest boy alive and ignores it using Headbutt for the KO. Second out is Venomoth. Our dig isn't really doing too much to it, so we switch back to Headbutt for the knockout. Then comes Fortress. Our Ice Punch is doing just about a third, and our Headbutt's doing barely anything, leading to it exploding and bring us to critical health. We dig to try and one-shot the Muck, but fail and get taken out. For round 2, I swap back to Fire Punch. While it's not exactly any more effective as Ariados or Venomoth, it absolutely destroys Fortress before it can explode, leading us back to Muck. With a much higher HP pool, I don't have to worry as much about it one-shotting us, so I dig then Headbutt for the KO. Last up is Crobat. We hit for half of its health and then it double teams, but it doesn't matter as we once again hit and secure our second win. But I can't celebrate just yet. Up third is Bruno. I have been very worried about this one. Bruno uses both rock and fighting types, our one and only weakness. I start off the fight by going for dig, however as Hitmontop fights fire with fire, avoiding our dig and hitting us with dig instead. Seeing this, I opt to go for Headbutt, which is surprisingly a one-shot. Hitmonlee is up next, but again I one-shot. This is rather unexpected. Hitmonchan has Mach Punch though, which hits us for respectable damage before going down to a crit. At this point, I was starting to think my concern was for nothing, as his Machamp misses Cross Chop, letting us take the KO. But last was his Onix. While we dig, it sets up Sandstorm, which will chip us every single turn. Combine that with Earthquake and we're in a bad spot. And then I do the dumbest thing I've ever done. I clicked Dig because I thought Headbutt would be a range, forgetting that this thing has Earthquake, and eating one for the loss. I kinda deserve that for getting complacent. Round 2 and we easily take out his Hitmontop and Hitmonlee. But without the crit, we get hit twice by Hitmonchan, followed by his Machamp hitting Cross Chop for our loss. Third time's the charm though, as we flinch Machamp, bringing us once again to Onix. We dig turn 1 for decent damage and follow up with Headbutt, with Onix's Earthquake bringing us just to 29 HP and Sand bringing us down to 7. But by the skin of our teeth, we claim victory. Next up is Karen, whose mantra about using Pokemon you like has always stuck with me through life. She leads with the tank that is Umbreon. Our dig's doing barely anything, leading to us getting confused. From here we hit ourselves once, before snapping out of confusion and picking up the KO. Vileplume could not stand the heat as 2 Fire Punches knock it out. Gengar manages to survive Dig and uses Spite, which takes some of our precious PP, but then it falls to Shadow Ball very quickly. The Murkrow frankly was never going to be a threat and gets easily one-shot, leading to Houndoom. Our Dig is barely missing the KO and Flamethrower hits for a third of our health. With only 1 Dig PP left, I go for Shadow Ball here as she heals up, allowing me to use the last PP on Dig for the KO. With the Elite Four down, I healed up, used my very few PP restoratives, and went to face the champion, Lance. He begins with a Gyarados. Our Headbutt is able to do just over half and it sets the rain, leading to Dragonite number 1. We Headbutt for just under half and it hits us with Paralysis. This lets it outspeed us and hit a Twister for minimal damage, but we get fully paralyzed. Next turn it hits a critical Thunder, bringing us to low health as we're once again fully paralyzed. This lets it Hyper Beam to finish us off. With this loss under my belt, I swapped back to Ice Punch and went in again. Gyarados went exactly the same this time, however Ice Punch was enough to bring Dragonite to a sliver of health. We did get paralyzed again though, making us eat a Hyper Beam before we take it out. Next is Dragonite number 2. It goes for Blizzard but misses, letting us take it to low HP. We then eat another Hyper Beam as we end up fully paralyzed, but thanks to the recharge turn on Hyper Beam, we get the KO. Next is Aerodactyl, which immediately knocks us out with Hyper Beam. It had become very apparent that if I wanted to win here, I needed to avoid being paralyzed. I cannot even begin to tell you how long this took. But eventually we get this run. Gyarados goes down in 2 hits like always. Then we get a crit versus Dragonite number 1. Dragonite number 2 we managed to hit a range, bringing us once again face to face with Aerodactyl. In a shocking turn of luck, we once again crit, allowing us to one-shot, leading to Charizard. Our Headbutt does just over half and we get the flinch, letting us take another KO, leading to Lance's final Dragonite. Ice Punch hits for 3/4 of its HP, and it uses Outrage for 1/3 of ours, but it's not enough as we hit our final Ice Punch for the win. With that, we are officially the Johto champions. But if you know anything about Gen 2 games, you know this is far from the end. It's time to head to Kanto. Given our sheer level advantage here, I am going to be speeding through a lot of this. So Brock's team of hardened Pokemon begins with a Graveler, who elects to waste his turn using Defense Curl, allowing for a swift KO. His Rhyhorn manages to hit us for decent damage before going down, and his Omastar brings us to just 50 HP. His Onix hits a Rock Slide on us for minimal damage, leaving us with just 32 HP versus his Ace Kabutops. Our dig hits it to critical health, and it hits us with Surf, leaving us with just 1 HP. That was extremely close, but our first Kanto badge is down. Along the way the second gym we run into Silver once again. But with a 20 level advantage, I'm sorry to say this is just a one-shot fest again. His Sneasel, Golbat, Magneton, Gengar, Alakazam and Meganium all couldn't touch me. Misty here appears to be rather washed up as a team of Golduck, Quagsire, Lapras and Starmie all failed to get an attack off against us. Lieutenant Surge here should be very well versed in trench warfare given his military history, but his Raichu, Electrode, Magneton, Electrode number 2 and Electabuzz all fall to our game of reverse whack-a-mole. Erika's Tangela, Jumpluff, Victreebel and Bellossom all failed to bloom on the battlefield, letting us get an easy win. Janine here starts off with a Crobat that easily falls to our headbutt, but the rest of her team consists of 2 Weezings, an Ariados and a Venomoth, which all failed to overcome the ancient ninja art of digging a hole. Sabrina was probably the easiest so far, as our Espeon, Mr. Mime and Alakazam all failed to see a future in which they won. While I'm not so sure that it's a good idea to be digging around near a recently erupted volcano, it turned out to be very effective versus Blaine's team of Magcargo, Magmar and Rapidash. Now that the small fry is out of the way, it's time to get to the interesting stuff. Our final gym leader is Blue, our rival character from the previous generation. Rather disappointingly, his team appears to have leveled down slightly since the last time we saw him, but that doesn't mean this is going to be easy. He starts out with Pidgeot, which we managed to flinch using Headbutt, allowing us to get an easy 2-shot. His Alakazam can't stand a single Shadow Ball, but then comes Rhydon. We do minimal damage and it sets the Sandstorm. While our Ice Punch is able to KO it next turn, we're on a clock now. Or not, as we do roughly half to his Gyarados and it sets the Rain. Next up is Exeggutor, which manages to tank a Shadow Ball and it Leech Seeds us. Then Blue proceeds to full heal and drag this out. 2 more Shadow Balls later and we come to his Ace Arcanine. Our dig is doing exactly half, but thanks to Leech Seed, it's now a free shot. With Flamethrower putting us in critical health, I really just need to gamble on Headbutt, only to be extreme speeded. Sadly, round 2 goes the exact same way. However, in round 3 we managed to avoid being hit by Leech Seed, as for some reason Exeggutor goes for Solar Beam instead. Without the healing we can easily 2-shot Arcanine with Headbutt and gain our final gym badge. With that, Professor Oak gives us permission to go to Mount Silver where our final challenge awaits. Unlike the rest of this run, I'm actually pretty underleveled for this, but let's see if we can get away with no grinding. Pokemon Trainer Red. He begins with a level 81 Pikachu. I go for Dig hoping that the stat difference will allow us to one-shot, which thankfully it does. His weakest Pokemon, Espeon, is out next, which we barely don't one-shot, leading to us losing half of our HP, which is pretty rough. Especially given that out next is Snorlax. Our Headbutt does roughly 1/4 as it goes for Amnesia, which thankfully is irrelevant to us. Our second Headbutt flinches, but I'm starting to get worried that Rest will come out, and I can't exactly win a battle of attrition here. But in a stroke of luck, our third Headbutt flinches, allowing us to get the safe 4-hit KO. But we're not out of the woods just yet though, as next up is Venusaur. Our Headbutt does just under a third and it begins charging Solar Beam. We dig to avoid the fatal hit and bring it to just half of its HP as it begins charging once again. Digging one more time, we put it in range of a Headbutt for the KO. Next up is Charizard, who I was really worried about, but Noodle luck strikes again as we flinch not once, but twice in a row, bringing us to Blastoise. We headbutt for just under a third of its HP and flinch once again. Then bring it to half as it hits Surf, bringing us to just 3 HP. It's all or nothing at this point. I bet everything on a high roll. And we missed the KO, but we hit the flinch again, letting us get one last headbutt and beat Red at only level 72. I have no idea what the odds of that fight were, but man, Noodle is one lucky boy. Thank you all for joining me in this little nostalgic stroll. Given the problems that Gen 2 has, I very much doubt I'll be doing another run here for a while. But sometimes it is nice to just have a bit more of a laid back run. Starting next month, we're going to see some minor schedule changes for the channel. So for now, I'm not entirely sure what the next challenge is, but I have a good feeling we're going to be heading to Lothric. See you then.